All right, as everybody knows, everything in life is garbage, and we should talk about it. All right.
It's all garbage.
It is all garbage, but we should still talk about it. Makes us feel better,
Sure.
Well, does it? All right. Anyways. All right.
Marginally.
We got a little list here. Let's start with 3, dude. And I was happy you chucked this out there. How do we feel about birthright citizenship right off the bat? I think there are ways to look at this question, 2 ways, which is like a little bit of a cop out, but like hear me out. I think birthright citizenship is like the right thing to do in like an ideal society. And I'm not sure who would disagree with that wording and framing. You know what I'm saying? But when we think about birthright citizenship, and your last sentence too, how a lot of first world countries and a lot of countries don't have birthright citizenship, it's like there's no question that there's probably like scummy countries out there that like keep out certain types of people because they're bigoted in a way. But also like you try to keep society balanced for what it is, and there's a reality to like how much you can support people who are fleeing parts of the world who do deserve a place to live. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at here? So, I think, like, what do you think about what I said?
Yeah, but you wouldn't need birthright citizenship for that. You would just need an asylum process.
True, or like a kind of like a robust legal immigration system. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the EU takes in way more refugees than the U.S. does, and I'm pretty sure the EU does not have birthright citizenship.
Most of it doesn't, and I'm not going to look it up because I don't care. But yeah, as far as I know, most of it doesn't, right? And like, it's funny enough how I know this stuff because like I watch enough sports and I see like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's a player on the Bucks. He's from Greece, but like I think he never got like Greek citizenship until like after he became big in his sport. You know what I'm saying? Because like they don't have, because his family was like immigrants from Africa, I believe, somewhere. So through things like that, I kind of know that they don't have the same like birthright that we have here. But how do you feel about birthright citizenship though? Like here, like do you think like, obviously it's an amendment, right? And it's you've read that, right? Like they talk about overturning it, but it's an amendment, so it's tricky. So like who cares about like the legality of it? Like how do you feel? How do you feel? Yeah.
Well, I will say that it does seem like the Supreme Court could be like, well, this is
whatever
the narrow context in which this applies, so it doesn't apply necessarily right now.
Yeah, no, I know. They could do whatever they want. But besides that,
it feels, right.
What are you feeling?
Outside of that?
Yeah.
What am I feeling? Well, I mean, it definitely is obviously, it is to some degree or another an incentive for people who are perhaps fleeing their country.
That's true.
Whether that be violence or poverty or whatever. A way to anchor yourself here is to get on U.S. soil, have the baby. Which I don't know is that actually how that works then? Say like an illegal couple crosses over the border and just has a baby on U.S. soil. Like, is that how that works?
Yes.
Those are U.S. citizens?
It doesn't matter how that baby arrived to be born on American soil. That baby is an American citizen. That is correct.
So then obviously...
As far as I understand it. A couple goofball dumbasses, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, say you have a couple, files for asylum, has birth to a child while they're here. Now their child is an American citizen, but their asylum claim is found to be not supported. Well, what the fuck do you do then?
No, that's where it gets. That's where over the years.
He can come to the U.S. eventually, but like.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that over the years, you can find tons of examples of families that do get separated. Not like the Trump separated families at the border thing, which is terrible, obviously. But like you just said, like even pre-Trump, like for years, like that would happen in America where you do have kind of like an anchor baby, but then because like Obama deported a lot of people in his time, so like kind of illegals would, especially if you broke the law in a way, blah blah blah, like they would get deported even if they had kids that were
like
legal citizens. So that's always been happening.
Did they deport the kids, or did the kids stay there?
No, the kids stay and they end up in the foster system, or they have family that take them in. I mean, most of the time people do have family that takes them in.
Interesting.
But as far as I know, again, this is straight. This smells coming out of my asshole, but as far as I know, like that's true. Like,
You're just guessing.
Well, not even that I'm guessing. I'm just
educated guess.
Let's call it that's such a beautiful term. Let's call it an educated guess, because I'm kind of thinking, that Obama was the deporter in chief, and like,
yeah,
Bush did that stuff too. So, yeah, like I'm just 2 + 2 = 4 as far as there's been anchor babies and people have been deported, and there's no question that either like family takes them in or some of them end up in the foster system or whatever. Like shit happens. It's been happening. So I guess like again, how do you feel about birthright citizenship? Are you fine with the way it is, or I feel like you do deeply consider it a little bit? So do you think it could be better than what it is? Are you okay with what it is? Or
I mean, I guess I don't really know how I feel about it, I suppose.
But why is that? Like you don't, because like. Is it because there's pros and cons, like each way you look at it, or is it like you haven't really thought about it as much as you'd like to, which is fair?
Well, I guess, again, thinking about the cons, the only thing I can really think of is that would incentivize people to just get here to have a baby, right? Like, regardless of your asylum claim. Because let's be honest, a lot of the people that do come here and claim asylum, I would say it's probably a majority of them that you find they don't necessarily have an asylum claim. They're just kind of fleeing poverty.
If that's true, that's fine. I don't know that that's true. Like, I have no idea.
That's definitely true.
If that's true, that's fine. I get it. I just, yeah, I give them.
If you let's take for a moment the poverty thing, right? People just fleeing poverty. If you're gonna open your doors to people fleeing poverty, you're gonna find yourself inundated very quickly.
No, of course you are. Of course you are.
You know what I mean?
And that's not really. Yeah. Of course. There's documented examples of this, like, throughout history. Most recently, probably like, Germany, with like accepting like over 1 million Syrians or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Look.
So it just seems
there's
to me
two ways to look at this. Again. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it just seems like a motivation, a tool that people could abuse, I suppose.
Sure. And people have abused.
Their motivation was to just like sort of get into the U.S. without having a legitimate asylum claim, or just trying to go through the natural channels of like immigration. Sure.
Have there been decently pregnant women already who somehow snuck in, even like before Trump, consider many years, for the intent purpose of this? And this maybe pulling them along to American citizenship? I'm sure that's true, dude. I'm sure that's true. So there's no question that there's an incentive. I think you're right about that. I think the real question is, like, do you agree with the idea that for, like, a society like ours, immigration is a net positive for our economy? Do you agree with that statement? Because that's just that's factually true. Like, that's economically proven again and again, that immigrants, provide a lot of benefit to society, and they pay taxes when they don't even have social security numbers to even get anything from the system. Like that is a true. You can disagree though. I would be interested if you do. Do you accept that immigration?
Well, here's my thing, right? Like, and I understand that that's factual, right? Like, I guess a large reason why Canada is in a recession right now is because they've brought in just an insane amount. Okay. Yes, there's been a large influx in Canada in the last couple of years.
Okay.
And Trudeau's rationale there is this is like GDP growth, right? Yes. But there does have to be an upper limit on that, right? Like,
perfect.
Again,
okay.
If you were to let in,
no, you're right.
15 million people all at once, like that feels like you're gonna have trickled like knockdown effects for them.
No, you're right. You're
right.
Not just let me stop you though,
growth.
if I may, I apologize, but if I may, like we agree on the general benefit of immigration. What I was gonna say next is like, so then the real question is like, where do you draw the line? Because you're right. So where do you draw the line? Like, unfortunately, in society, we swing almost one way or the other, black and white, which is ridiculous on like a voting level, because I don't think mass deportations are good for the country. Like full stop. Yeah, I think that's not good for the country.
Definitely like, co-sign that statement. Yeah,
that's a terrible waste of resources. If is true, right? So yeah, like the real question is, and I'm not even asking for an answer. This is just me. Like this is like where the debate is. It's like, where do you draw the line? How much immigration do you let in? Obviously, if you're a more wealthier country, you should be able to be more selective, because you would think that even the top of the line immigrants would still want to come to, like, in general, to like a wealthier country, right? Which I think is still true. Like, I didn't know Canada let in a bunch of people, but I'm sure a lot of pretty educated people would like to come to Canada for what it is. That's still true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even though people hate Trudeau, give me a break. It's still
people do hate Trudeau.
It's first world problems. It really is, right? It's true. Just like Trump is first world problems. Both of those things are first world, right? So
it was
that's
funny
fine,
too.
Yeah.
Not, just as a quick aside, I saw a video the other week of this was a couple months ago, but it was some blue collar worker who had like quote unquote confronted Trudeau because Trudeau was doing some sort of tour.
Okay.
Of like some company, some industrial company, blah, 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 whatever. So the guy confronts him.
Yeah.
And the first thing he brings up is him having to so he took his family to the dentist. I guess maybe like 2 kids and himself and his wife. He was like, and I had to pay like a $70 copay or something like that. Okay. Like that was his gripe. And it was just funny from my perspective looking at that, because it's like, what the fuck? What do you mean? There were 4 of you? You got through the dentist and you only had to pay $70? Like, what do you...
Right.
So it's just funny because it's a contextual thing, obviously.
This reminds me of the election we just had here. It's like, your feelings are still valid. Even if your feelings are like first world problems, when it comes to an election, your feelings are still valid because you have a vote. And if enough people feel that Donald Trump is the change agent, not Kamala Harris, they're going to vote for the change agent, not the same old neoliberal. So,
but that was just a quick aside.
Sure. Yes. Anyways,
Canada has brought in a lot of the swing to the right we've seen in Canada in the last couple of years is because they've brought in genuinely. I mean, I wish I could get a number for you, but it's like 1 million plus people, and when you're talking Canada, that's percentage wise a way bigger swing than it would be for the US. You know what I mean?
I think we both have to admit that we aren't bothered by some sort of mass immigration in our own lives. I get how we don't live in big cities where these things mostly happen and people can get displaced. I get that. It's hard for me to ever hear that like we have to talk hard numbers and data, because I'm not just gonna like say like we shouldn't be accepting immigrants. I think that gets really to be a slippery slope of like, are we accepting nobody? Like that's bad. Full stop. If you accept nobody, that's bad. Full stop. It just is. So, I hate to like go down a slope like that myself without like having hard numbers, because you're gonna ask the right questions. Okay, we both agree that like, you shouldn't have no immigration and you shouldn't have unlimited immigration. We both agree on that. But, like, where's the line? It's like, maybe we need to be a little more educated. But we have garbage in our brain, just like it's all garbage around us.
We have garbage in our brain.
I just don't know. I don't know you know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't give you numbers. I couldn't tell you. Like, I know that I want to live in a society that does have a really good, healthy amount of legal immigration that it allows, but also can vet in a good way, right? And I think most people would agree with that statement. Like, even if they were left or right, it's just the devil's in the details. And like, what are we gonna do here? And the problem is that the people that are about to take power, it feels like they want to make the number 0, which is not a good number. That's bad.
Even legal immigration, it does.
They're trying to throw people out of the country. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, they're for sure going to do that. There's zero doubt about that. They are going to.
And let's be fair. Obama did. Trump did. They all do. Biden did. They deport.
It depends. Well, again, so we'll see how this actually manifests. But from the sounds of it, they want a. They're going to declare a national emergency. They're going to get access to a lot more resources, and it sounds like they're going to try and get the National Guard at a minimum to round people up and en masse just.
And we'll see what happens. So
we will see what happens.
Why is the electoral system in this country still very good? And why 2020 was correct and not fraud, and why 2024 was also correct and not fraud? Because it's a very decentralized system. There's so much to America that's so vast and decentralized. I am taking a little solace in the fact that Trump's going to, whatever these people that might try to use government in their own way try to do, it's so hard because you can't control everything. Like every one of these agencies is large, has tons of employees, has its own directives inside of things. Like you can't. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you take any solace in that fact, or do you just think that he'll blow shit up and it's going to be a bad time?
Well, we are a federalist system, right? Like ultimately states have to submit to the whims of the federal government. Right? I mean, that's just
that's fine. What I'm saying is,
they push the point hard enough, like the Trump administration. If they push it hard enough, if they pull the right levers of power, they can absolutely get done what they want to get done. I think.
Yes. It just how does that look, and is it possible?
But I mean, technically, that is. I don't want to use the word treasonous, but if the federal government wants to do something, technically the states have to submit to that power. So
this is what I mean. The amount of things that federal government does in all aspects is so wide and far-reaching. People who ever take power will have their priorities, and especially the people who I think are about to take power are much more simple-minded in the things they want to get done. The rest of the things will still turn as normal. They might have less funding. They might have less workers by the end of the term. But the other things will still turn. I shouldn't even say as normal because I do think there's going to be some impact. We can talk about that if you want. But the other wheels will still turn because they're not going to care that much.
Get ready for expensive produce.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't
like the people that are worried that Dr. Oz is going to blow things up. I'm worried about Dr. Oz misspending money on private jets and traveling, not really blowing everything up. He's a grifter. But go ahead. What were you saying?
Again, because that's kind of what the first Trump administration was, right? Like the institutions kind of held more or less. I mean, we took a little bit of a shellacking, but as far as institutional power,
the question is why.
Too much. It feels different this time.
Why does it feel different this time?
Well, because Trump just got wrote a blank check by the Supreme Court.
That is, I agree with that. That is fair.
Executive power.
That is where I do agree with you.
Weirdly unlimited. I mean, there obviously are limits, but apparently it's up to Congress to different. Yeah, that's wild.
Look out for him. Also, look out for him to file some sort of lawsuit if he's interested. I don't know if he is, but look out for him to file some sort of lawsuit that would go to the Supreme Court about running for a third term before that all kicks off.
No.
Well, just like you said, the Supreme Court's in his pocket. So if he's thinking to himself, you don't think he would do that? You don't. The most self-serving man in the history of our lives. Let's not get crazy about all time.
No, man, he's gonna be how fucking old is Trump? He's not gonna do that. I would bet.
You think he's just gonna walk away? You think he's just gonna walk away? What if he's staring down the barrel? Listen. We talked about this,
but go ahead.
And this sucks. But we could easily have the same old neo-lib Democrat run again and win in 28. Okay, so you could easily have that scenario. So Trump's what? Gonna just let some other Dem take over where they might open investigations again and do this or do that?
No, because he's going to be 82. He's going to coronate his fucking protege, and then he's going to walk off into the sunset.
But they could lose in 28. They could easily lose in 28 because nobody's pulled numbers like Trump or Biden or even Kamala. She's got the third most votes in history now, or whatever, fourth, because Trump's got, I guess, top two. But these numbers aren't pulled by anybody else, so there's no evidence. There's no evidence that I guess for the Democrats too, to be fair. But I don't know. There's no evidence that another Republican could just beat Trump. Zero. I'm open to it if there is.
He's not gonna run again, though.
All right. Anyways,
dude, I would bet
just
my
real quick.
left nut on that.
All right, I'm not betting with you anymore. You crushed me, but we'll see. We'll definitely he's gonna be chopped up. My guy, he's gonna be chopped up and saved. So,
sure. I mean,
maybe I come back and listen to this in a few years and we see what happens. We'll see what happens. I just think if he can be the president again, he's gonna try to swing that. He
just wants to get out of trouble right now, and he wants to.
Of course he did.
Just sort of line his pockets a little bit more with the second term.
Always.
And then he's gonna walk up into the fucking sunset.
Oh yeah, he's gonna line that bitch.
He's gonna coronate J.D. Vance. And then eventually Barron Trump will rise from Trump's ashes.
And then he's nominating these people like he clearly couldn't care less. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, his cabinet's for sale right now. His cabinet is for sale.
So bad.
For sure. You either buy it with loyalism or money right now. Yeah.
Let's establish this early. It's not going to win us friends, but we're establishing this early. This is a pro-vaccine podcast. But anyway.
Whoa. Let's bookmark that for a future conversation.
All right. I would love to just take you to the mat on that. No problem. We'll do that sometime. That's fine. We can introduce controversy, but I'll take you to the mat. Anyways. Just real. Let's. I did want to still get your take on the master.
Just to get back to.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, just to finish that point, my distinction between. The reason I'm more concerned now is because I think he's surrounded by less people who are reasonable. And because the executive branch now has sort of like a blank check, I don't know to what extent they're going to fucking just go ham on the stuff they want to do.
So you don't give any
real...
You don't give any real credence to my idea that, like, although you're right that they're more unhinged and more like burn it to the ground nominees, you don't give any credence to the idea that the wheels still will turn in a lot of ways, even at the end of his 4 years. Do you think they're going to accomplish burning a lot to the ground? Do you think? Okay. All right. I
think his first year is going to be a bit of a shell shock, even for a good chunk of the people that voted for him.
And look,
but again, I'd love to be wrong. Wrong.
If he does tariffs and he does mass deportations and does all these things that will absolutely crush the economy and like have insane inflation because of the tariffs.
Yeah, your produce is going to be. If he does
these things, I'm not going to be happy that people are going to suffer. We could lose our jobs. Who knows? How bad the economy gets. You just don't know.
Sure.
But I am gonna sit there and be like, listen, this is what. As much as we've had those discussions over the years about democracy and how I think everyone should be able to vote, no question, even if they're not informed, because it's like a human right to me. I respect that human right of that choice.
Bookmark that one. Bookmark.
And like, if Trump somehow has a successful 4 years where like we do well as a country, somehow relations are doing really well as far as democracy ones, and like things are going well, I'm gonna sit here and be like, let's go, we did it. But
I'm not optimistic.
Probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
But so just to bring it all the way back to the
go ahead.
Top of the argument, birthright citizenship, I do feel like at the heart of what the origins of the U.S. is, birthright citizenship does make sense because it was, quote unquote, the New World, allegedly a land of just like opportunity, like just fucking show up at the door and work hard and you can find success here, right? Like at the heart of the United States, birthright citizenship makes sense.
Yes. Oh yeah, let's bring it all the way back. Good. Yes, I agree with that. But as always, it's more the devil in the details about like, what would you do? Like birthright citizenship in a society where immigration is channeled really well and positively isn't even a thought because it doesn't matter. Does that make sense? Where like if you have don't have illegal immigration and you have a really robust but decent at least vetting where you're letting in people that would help, but even letting in people that also need help, like that's fine. You wouldn't have to even worry about this. But yeah, if you don't, then it gets to be the incentive you said earlier, which is there and exists. It does.
Well, it's, there's a reason why European countries don't do it.
There is, and also these European countries They might not anymore, and they might be trending away from it, but they have at times had liberal immigration policies over the years. And look, when you talk about a world, so to their detriment, to their detriment in what way?
Well, Germany's going through some growing pains right now.
So what detriments are they having from it? Like, in what way?
Well, again, I mean, this gets into a broader question about, like, culture and assimilation and
because I agree that it's to the detriment of the immediate mixing of cultures. There's no way that can be reconciled exactly perfectly. This isn't kumbaya. This is real life. I agree with that. But I do think that in the long term, well, hang on. Well, I'm just going to say it, and then let's try to think it through. I was going to say, in the long term, if you influx a bunch of people, especially when you're a advanced economy, advanced country that has low birth rates, that will always be a net positive in the long run. I think that's true. I think it gets complicated over the long run, and do they still have democracy and blah, 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 blah. Fine, because like you're definitely going to import a different culture, right? And how do those values mix? And that's where the negativity comes from. But I do think that if you can assimilate people over time, that's always a net positive. Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
If somebody fully buys into the idea of what the host country is culturally,
right.
If you fully buy into that, there's literally zero issue.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Germany had a bit of a unique issue too, where like a majority of it was from the same culture, and
yeah, no, and now you have a huge of that culture influence. Right?
Yeah, there's a larger cultural influence there when it's all one group, as opposed to like just this cornucopia of like a broad spectrum of cultures, different people coming to Germany.
Yeah.
But also just the reaction, because I think, again, I don't think anybody in the U.S. is allowed to make any cultural claim on this country outside of anything but what the Constitution lays out, right? Because like there are very few people native to this land that are here anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. There's no ethnic claim to this country. No. The only people that could make that claim are largely
Native Americans,
whittled down.
But wherever they are, they have their own country, quote unquote, anyways. So they're not even under our, you know what I'm saying? Our Constitution's exclusively not native.
Right.
True.
Whereas I think places like Germany, there is a longer tradition of like a certain culture there. I think the gripe is more valid there, especially if you feel like people aren't assimilating and they're carving out their own little cultural niches inside of your...
Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like to me, it makes more sense with the United States.
Do you agree that when you say valid, you mean you should still aspire to assimilate people if it's possible? Like you should. Obviously, in reality, if a country flirts with the maximum amount of people that their citizens can tolerate being influxed in every year, that might be a problem. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
Like I don't find me someone, and you can, so don't do this in actuality. But find me someone, and they're few and far between, who would disagree with that statement. Like that person's a dick. Because you should always aspire to assimilate someone. Now, in reality, is a totally different discussion. But you should always aspire to do that. That's where that's where I'm always so fucking, and because I'm a little bit of a B, but whatever, dude. This is what I am. That's where I always hesitate. Like I don't want to. That's where I say slippery slope, and I don't want to go down the road of like, well, I don't support immigration. You know, it's like that's not. I do.
Right. I'm saying more I think along most people the lines. Yeah. You're seeing now politically cultural shifts, both in Canada and Germany and France, where people are swinging towards harder line conservatism as a response to it. And if you go far enough in that direction, we all know what that leads to. So even for the sake of the people who are trying to move there, you don't, you know what I mean? Like the response to the people arriving there can get dangerous for the people arriving there.
There's no question that there has been a political response in certain countries to things like that relate to mass immigration. But I do think that the number one driver of the change agents of elections that you've been seeing, because in the UK they went from conservative to Labour. They didn't go rightward. It's just because of inflation. And everyone's pissed off that for a few years that like shit was mad expensive. And by the way, the way inflation works, it never goes back down. You just get used to where it ended up. But, yeah. But you're right. Like it's how do you? I just felt like you kind of cited like the rightward shift of, correctly so, of like a lot of Western countries, let's call them. Which shame on those Western countries. Those people are shitbags. But
okay.
But I do think it's mostly like we just got a lot of grenades in. But I do think it's mostly probably the inflation, right? Same thing with like Kamala losing to Trump. I think it's mostly the inflation. I just
for sure that one I would say she lost because of inflation.
Yeah, inflation. Like just people were not better off than they were 4 years ago because of inflation. A lot of people tried to cite the pandemic as being like worse off, but even a competent politician, as opposed to dummy complete absolute peak moron Trump, but even a perfect person who doesn't exist, it's still a pandemic. So like, there was never going to be a 4 years later where you're better off. There was literally a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Because there was a lot of people on, I think, Team Kamala that were like, oh, you're better off because, like, 4 years ago was the pandemic. It's like, yeah, but, like, that would have been tough for anyone, I think. It would have been tough for anyone. Anyways,